And we are live with one heck of a power-packed panel here. This will be a very fascinating, very interesting chat. My name is Kevin Lancaster, CEO of Channel Program, and I want to bring together some of the key sponsors of the 2024 Channel Technology Map and report that we put out here about just over a month ago. That map, if you hadn't downloaded or been on the site, taking a look at the map. It featured 990 different vendors, about 1,200 different products. Even since then, I think we've added another 72 products to the platform. So one of the key takeaways, at least for me, is that this marketplace is massive and it's not slowing down. Technology is moving at obviously a rapid torrid pace. That's not going to slow down. And there's been a lot of stack and vendor consolidation over the last couple of years. Meanwhile, the stack is ever expanding. Some of the other data points that we were able to extract out of that report is that the average MSP is working with 62 different products and services. And that goes beyond just kind of the core stack. That also includes some of their email marketing, their accounting software, but think about just the overall number of technologies that they're working with is pretty massive. And I think that represented 52 different vendors, 52.7 different vendors. So the vendor sprawl and stack sprawl is real. And we've got some leading experts in the space that are going to be joining me here. They're joining me here. I'll go down a brief intro. We got Greg Lubke, Manager Channel Sales at OpenText. We got Mike Puglia, General Manager at Kaseya. Steve Copeland, Founder and CEO of RYTHMz, and Rob Allen, Chief Product Officer of ThreatLocker. So, gentlemen, welcome. Thank you for participating in this most interesting of topics.
I like the way you got the best for last there, Kevin. Just saying.
I was going to go like alphabetical by last name, but I figured I'd mix it up, and make sure we did save the best for last. But with that said, again, we've seen a ton of trends in the marketplace. I mentioned consolidation. I mentioned just sprawl, but then there's also this massive push to platforms. Right, that has been a key theme over the last couple of years. A lot of vendors are either a single product and then they go out and start second, third product or acquire, what have you. So you're seeing this evolution to consolidation to multi-product platforms. And so maybe I'll just kind of, Rob, since you spoke up first, I'm gonna call on you first. How about that? What should MSPs be thinking about as this this marketplace is evolving so fast? If they're looking at technologies, what are some of the things they should be thinking about? That's a broad question, but we got some time to kill.
So first things first, I just wanted to say I'm intrigued as to who the 0.7 vendor is. You mentioned 52.7. Who is a vendor that is 0.7 of a vendor?
That'd be me.
We rounded up, it wouldn't be accurate, so we had to put.
That's fine. Just wanted to be clear on that. No, but I suppose consolidation. I mean, as you said, realistically, MSPs are using way too many products. Those numbers are, quite frankly, terrifying. For those of you who don't know, my background is I worked for an MSP in Ireland for nearly 18 years, and really, from a practical point of view, the more you can do within one product or one platform, the better, because it's one interface to learn, it's one product to know, it's one place to go, it's one support relationship to maintain rather than many. So the move towards consolidation is quite frankly sensible. It makes a huge amount of sense. Sorry, there's my CEO ringing me. Quite frankly, it makes a huge amount of sense. It's a logical way to go.
Yeah, Mike, I mean, let me get your take on this, because you've been at Kaseya for a while now, and you've seen this evolution from, RMM to this massive, product portfolio player at this point. So what are kind of your thoughts from kind of Kaseya's point of view, or your personal point of view?
Yeah, I mean, 11 years now, and I met Kevin a long time ago. He showed me my password in his products. I would say two things, really. Number one is very few, if any, MSPs have a vendor management department, right? If you go to Citibank, there are hundreds of people that manage subscriptions, licenses, all this other thing. So by having a ton of vendor sprawl, there's a tax. Who ends up dealing with it? The owner. A lot of times the individual techs, because they know this company. And number two, I think it's a natural, maturation of the market. If you go back, and I'll show my age, you used to buy a copy of WordPerfect. And if you were in Boston, you bought a copy of Lotus 123, and you bought PowerPoint. And Microsoft consolidated that by saying, you know what, it was Office, and we can give you a single license and have all those benefits that Rob discussed, and also build links between those products or integrations or automations, whatever you want to call them. So instead of using, Excel and WordPerfect, I use Word and Excel, and if I right click in Word, that's an Excel table. So there's a benefit to it besides, the idea of bundling. And so you've seen they changed productivity software, and you've seen it, in other areas, Salesforce and NetSuite and Oracle. And so I think you're seeing a, maturity of the market of saying there's an advantage to using these things.
Yeah. So let's see, Greg, you guys have, with OpenText, right? You guys have moved obviously at a pretty accelerated clip here over the last couple of years with a couple of big announcements and additions to the platform. And I guess, a similar kind of question, to both the ThreatLocker and Kaseya. I mean, you guys are moving into this platform direction. You maybe more specifically focus on security, but how's that? You guys have that strategy, but how's that helping the MSP? Is it helping in consolidation? Is it helping in interoperability in the products?
Yeah, so kind of you mentioned kind of the different ways that the different vendors are growing. OpenText definitely went with the consolidation through acquisition, right? So I was actually old-time WebRoot, so we were one of the first acquisitions that OpenText made about 5 years ago. And so I've been part of this journey. I did leave for a little while actually to another platform organization that is adjacent to Mike over there at Kaseya, that also has taken that platform approach, right? And so what we've done at OpenText though is going from WebRoot into Zix, into AppRiver, into partnering with Microsoft, and then our latest acquisition of Pillar to kind of put the bow on top of everything with the full MDR, SIM, SOAR capabilities, is bring all that together into one consolidated platform, one consolidated console, right? And so I was talking at an event, I was doing a keynote about a month ago, and I actually took a poll of everybody. And so to your point, Kevin, with as many vendors that are out there, I said, how many cybersecurity solutions are in your stack today? I said, keep your hand up until you don't hear the number of solutions in your stack anymore. We got up to 13. There were still people up, with their hands. There was probably 8 people out of a group of 150 plus with their hands up with 13 different vendors in their stack. And I said, this is a problem that is not only not going away, but it's only going to accelerate because the number of vendors, the number of solutions that you need in your cybersecurity stack is not going to get smaller. And so I'm not talking to MSPs about going to even one single pane of glass, because I ultimately don't even think that is, I think that's kind of a pie in the sky thought process. I think it's going to be a consolidation down to, from 13 vendors down to 3 or 4, right? And so you can make those consolidated plays and start to have those conversations and that thought process with an MSP for the long game to go from 13 or 10 or 8 or whatever you might be utilizing now down to just a handful. So
yeah, I completely agree. What's interesting, I was just pulling the report back up, just in the cybersecurity section of the report. I think we highlight 257 different logos.
Yeah.
And that's over, I think last year we had 136 or something like that. So you can see, that it is real, right? It's to your point, just a number of different solutions and products within the security stack. We'll do a cybersecurity specific tech map, I think maybe April timeframe, something like that. But so it'll be interesting to see how that evolves from 257 to, I'm sure we'll be probably in the 300 logo range at that point. But Steve, let's get your perspective, right? Because you've had the luxury of being on a couple sides of this marketplace, and now you're
a little bit.
Yeah, you're in that category of emerging, and I would argue necessary solutions out there in the stack, right? And so you're at the other end of it, where you're pulling or you're pushing for mind share of the MSP as there's kind of this idea of consolidation and what have you. But you guys end up being a core, really interesting. I would say at times mission critical capability. So how do you kind of I guess rationalize that as you're talking with MSPs about your solutions and what you're seeing and just your experience in the space?
Well, it's interesting, and very rarely do I get to say this, but I'm the youngest on this panel. So, meaning vendor wise, sorry, Rob. I just got side-eyed by Rob. But we are the youngest vendor. We're only about a year old. Our site is unique, and it's interesting because you can do comparisons, right, with the TCOM industry. Just left a huge TCOM panel that I was on, and they're talking about consolidation and hundreds of different vendors and hundreds of different products. It's a very similar side of it. And as MSPs are moving towards that moment of becoming a carrier service provider, and TCOM agents are moving towards that MSP side, and I know everybody who's been on this panel has talked about that and has seen that for decades at this point, right? This is actually kind of coming into this big, huge piece at the same time. So that stack is becoming more and more important. And I agree that, I mean, it blew my mind, the 67 or the 13 people, because I've asked the same kind of question. What's in your stack? Well, we've got this. And coming from that MSP side and my background with in-house IT, we had to consolidate a long time ago. And we had multiple different vendors for multiple different things. It reminds me of the spam filtering days, where there was 150 different spam filtering companies out there, and you had to pick which one that did the best. It really boils down to vendor interaction and integration and just from an outside. How can I interact with, like, say, if I have this product, does this product give me the same thing this one does? And does it interact? How do I get that interaction? And I think really from the vendor side, it's really up to us to start that interaction, that interoperability between everybody to really kind of go, we are as a group, the stack that you need. Stop going out to Spiceworks, or did I say that out loud? Stop going out to a free product that's not going to give you what you want, when you can actually get this and have this within a very simple solution piece to have you out there. And we are in a weird spot with that, but I think an evaluation from an MSP standpoint is really looking at the interoperability, does it solve the customer's problem? Right? Just to have cybersecurity and not picking on that, but just talking about that, having that in your stack, does it solve your customer's problem? Does it give them the solution that they need? Because they're looking for, not, is it a cybersecurity product? Is it a spam filtering product? Is it a 5G internet backup product? They're looking at you to solve their problem. And that's really where the rubber meets the road. And if you're going to build and scale and get to the stages that Rob's been at, that I've been at, that Kevin, that you've been at, if you're not solving those problems and thinking about it before them from an MSP standpoint, you're not going to get past that proverbial ceiling of 5 million, 10 million, 15 million. I used to make the joke that if my client sneezes, I better have a cold. Right. So I want to make sure that I know what they're doing. And multiple other, the airplane initiative, the CEO goes on a trip and comes back and goes, what about that CRM? Right. So having that side of it and knowing that those things are happening and that stickiness with your client, I think, is the big piece to understand where that stack comes into play.
Yeah. Now you mentioned, does it solve a problem? And one of the core themes, just generally across every one of these product categories, there's 220 product categories, is AI and the promise of AI kind of coming in and solving problems. Maybe I'll kind of start with you, Greg. I mean, how does AI, or how's the overall mission of AI play into what you guys are building over there?
Yeah, so the MSP space is definitely seen a lot of love too. We've seen, to the vendor standpoint, we've seen a handful of AI vendors just pop into the space in the past year or so. So it's definitely getting some attention. From an OpenText standpoint, OpenText has been building out their own AI platform at the enterprise level for the past few years. They've announced that it is fully operable on the enterprise side, and it will trickle down over into the OpenText cybersecurity space that is servicing the MSPs here in the next year or two as well. Right now, kind of what we're doing through our partnership with Microsoft is kind of soft launching, I would say, AI, right? And so when talking with MSPs through the Microsoft partnership, Copilot has actually gotten a lot of attention. Copilot, I think, is like a great way to just, it's the unscary way for an MSP to dip their toe into AI and introduce AI to their clients to say, you can build out PowerPoints with this. You can take an Excel document and take pages and pages of Excel, cell files and just consolidate them into one, executive summary. You can do a lot of things with Copilot to make your day-to-day life a lot easier. End clients are taking the MSPs up on that, and so we're seeing a huge uptick over here with Copilot.
Excellent. Maybe I could have jumped to you, Mike. I mean, you guys have made a pretty sizable investment in, I think, Cooper, in a lot of the AI built into the Kaseya stack. I guess that's a core tenet or theme for you guys moving forward.
It is. I think we've all seen AI. It's kind of like cloud 10 years ago. Every product or service had the word cloud in it, right? Mm-hmm. And now everything is AI. AI for AI's sake doesn't deliver anything, kind of as Steve said. It doesn't solve a problem for the end customer. So if you're just building stuff that is, Chat GPT, and you're saving somebody a cut and paste, a lot of things out there are kind of doing that. What we're trying to do is integrate it where it can have specific help. So inside of tickets, to recommend, does a great job, as Greg said, of summarizing a ticket, for changing the ticket response to use human language instead of techie language, for remediation instructions, for automatically documenting things. So we're picking use cases and building it into the product where it can be measurable, of saying, did this help our solve tickets faster, give a better response, you get more positive outcomes. And so we're doing that across the platform of where Gen AI can really be helpful. And it's going to be important. And you probably all see it in your day. Copilot is great. It makes me realize how poor of a writer I am. But, in that kind of experience, bringing it into the MSP tool stack, but we have the ability to kind of reach out and do other things because we're all interconnected to help reduce the amount of time and efficiency and quality. That's where we're putting it, and we're baking it in across all the products.
Rob, I imagine from a product standpoint, you're maybe I'm projecting, but I think it's might be a safe assumption. But you have to think about AI, both inbound from a threat perspective, and then you have to think about it from a product perspective, right? As you're developing product and looking for efficiencies and scalability and what have you. So I imagine you have a pretty interesting dynamic going on when you're thinking about this whole world of AI.
Absolutely. And to be honest, I'm glad you said it, Kevin, because I didn't want to be the one bringing the downsides or potential downsides of AI into the conversation, because one of the things that we try and communicate with people is, look, AI may help protect you, but realistically in this day and age, it's just as likely to be used against you. A really basic, simple example is, and I did our quarterly training yesterday, and one of them was our quarterly security training. One of them was spotting a phishing email, or spotting a dodgy email, and it's look for bad grammar and bad spelling. I'm sure we've all noticed that bad grammar and bad spelling are very much not a thing anymore when it comes to these emails, because they're realistically taking their bad grammar and bad spelling spam email and they're throwing it into ChatGPT, and it's coming back beautifully formatted and beautifully grammared. God, okay, sorry. Bad choice of word there when I'm talking about grammar, but you get the point. To be honest, from a personal perspective, one of my frustrations with the industry, well, cybersecurity industry, shall we say specifically, is it's like, and I'm not going to use the expression I was going to use, but it's basically like an our AI is bigger than your AI contest. So it's like an arms race, for example, and realistically, nobody's going to win, because, as I said, it is just as likely to be used by the attackers. I mean, fundamentally, can AI beat AI? I do also want to, and we do demonstrations and stuff using AI to generate malware and so on and so forth. Some really interesting and quite educational interactions I've had with getting things like reverse shells out of ChatGPT. And finally, on the subject of AI, if and when they do actually become sentient and take over and kill us all, it's probably my fault, because most of my interactions with ChatGPT, I do swear at it and I do call it names. So when it comes to get us, it's probably my fault. Sorry about that, guys.
And you're first on the list.
I was going to say, it's coming after you.
Oh, man. So one of the things I want to touch on, and this was very prevalent as well in the so this is prevalent actually in the product reviews. So again, going back to the platform, is that we've had 5,600 odd product reviews on the platform. And one of the questions we ask is kind of the importance or the strength of the channel program of the vendor that you're reviewing or the product that you're reviewing. And that has surfaced quite a bit of insight into the value of support, vendor support, particularly when you're working with a new or an MSP is new to your organization or new to that product. They're trying to get it off the ground, and we all know the failure to thrive or failure to really get up and adopted. But so Steve, imagining again been around a lot of sides of this marketplace.
We're actually using AI. So from our side of it, we use it for predictive analysis of traffic outages. Where is that piece is at, and using there's a couple different products out there that show us where that we can have that, and then helping our MSP partners to really kind of target that piece of it. So that is it. We're in beta. It's coming. AI used in network infrastructure is amazingly smart.
Sure.
It's not the Skynet that Rob keeps teasing, but it isn't the minions that everybody else is using, right? So, but AI from just the MSP standpoint, this really kind of has come up in some of the things that we're doing. 78% of small and medium-sized businesses are using AI, and they're using it for accounting. And if that doesn't scare everybody, it should. The biggest problem is not, there is a big problem with nefarious actors, but the biggest problem is Susie loading up patient health records. So how do you prevent that, and how do you look at that? And those are some things that are coming. I think AI is coming to the point, or I call it LLM. I can't stand the AI piece, but that LLM side of it is coming to a fruition and a maturity level that really there's a huge opportunity for managed services providers for training, for discussions. How are we using this? The four biggest fears are, and I'll give this one to Rob. Cybersecurity is third, but the biggest piece is training. How do they use it? And then cost, and what are they using it for? It's not that, and this is done in a government study, there's no, the fear was AI is going to take my job. I remember I had 10 coders freaking out that they were going to lose their job. I'm like, AI is not going to code as well as you. You still need to review it. It's a tool. And we're moving into that maturity level of it's a tool. So that's the approach that we've always taken. And when we did that, I said, how do I predict outages? Not just, is there a hurricane here or is there a hurricane there? What Nortel Shasta? Oh wow, now I'm showing my age. What box is out there in the middle of the country that always goes down on Wednesdays in March? And there are these boxes that are sitting out there, and Cisco and a lot of larger networking companies are really looking at that. But being able to predict that and go, all right, from an SMP, we've had. I couldn't predict this, but I'm trying to figure out how to predict it. We had one of our MSPs had a client that they scheduled their lunch hour on their internet outages every day. So how do we do that and find those people to kind of go, you don't need to take a lunch at 2:00 in the afternoon. Let's fix it so you can take a lunch at a normal time. So that AI piece coming into that side of it and really analyzing and looking at large amounts of data is there. Kind of taking a different approach than Rob did. Rob's teasing it. I'm trying to pet it and make it my friend.
I insult it.
I do too. There's a little Irish in me too, Rob.
Well, so to that point, right, there's a lot of education that's got to go into this, and this is now compounding just kind of the traditional, get your partner up and running and getting them to use the product, and then growth and what have you. But so Mike, you guys have leaned in quite heavily with programs like powered services and And do you guys use that as a differentiator, in part of the product selection process, or how important is that to the overall success of the MSP, or the overall success, I guess, of your growth as well?
Yeah, I mean, I'll point out one thing before we dive into that. In looking at the scale of your technology map, right? Almost 1,000 vendors. You're seeing consolidation, platform plays. You're seeing the same thing on the MSP side, right? Mergers and acquisitions, private equity. I know it doesn't always feel like this, but the reason all of this activity is happening is the underlying assumption by private equity, public markets, and that's why you're seeing the money pour in, is that small business technology spend will outpace other areas of the economy over 8 years. There'll be ups and downs, but it's better to invest in that than, I don't know, paper companies, right? Mm-hmm. So that's good news. Everyone is betting, and why you're seeing all this activity on your end customer. And I know it doesn't feel like that. So one of the things we try to do in our partner program is we have something called Powered Services. So it is a platform that helps market and sell and train your people on the services that you are providing. It will do, recommended social media posts. We'll even do the social media posts for you. So we view it as an integral part of our partner strategy that we can get on and help you, wearing your, some of the people, wearing your, named jacket. Some of our people have tons of windbreakers from customers. And what we just launched and are in the process of rolling out, because I was talking to our head of that program, who, Kevin, he's really excited. We just created an MSP marketing benchmarking tool. And because when you say leads, we don't have any leads, that doesn't solve the problem. And so it actually will go out, you give it some data, and it will look at your SEO, your social media, your ratings on different sites, and it will create a gap analysis of, you don't have any SEO in your area. Here's how to fix it. And so we view it as important because we can make all the technology we want. And back to, Steve's point, if it's not solving a problem and we're not able to communicate the problem it's solving, it won't matter. So we view it as critical to help our MSPs effectively sell and market their products and their services.
Yeah, I'll throw that over to both Greg and Rob. Greg, again, you guys, the portfolio growth and then the complexity of security, right? I imagine you guys have to do a lot of investment into, education, support, and training of your partners to make sure they're getting off the ground and everyone's successful.
Yeah, absolutely. So, from OpenText standpoint, we do a few different things to help our partners out when we onboard them, right? So all onboarding that we do, whether it's just, basic endpoint protection or it's pillar, we jump on with those partners and make sure they're fully onboarded. We're a little bit unique as well, is that in the platform that we moved into, we're pretty much essentially on a prove it contract month over month. So we are on you onboard your first client and your minimum quantity is 1, and you basically get access to our entire portfolio of solutions with a discounted price book, and then you're off to the races. Now, what we do is assign you an account manager, a sales engineer, marketing development funds, but we work with you to do a sell with you motion, right? So it's a teach a man how to fish. We know initially that those MSPs aren't going to know our products as well as we are, or as well as we do. So to Mike's point, we jump on the phone with them, and we're essentially a white labeled salesperson with their sales team or with the owner or whoever that might be in that instance to help drive home the value of the OpenText cybersecurity solutions and why it would be valuable to that client to onboard with that MSP. And then once we have them onboarded, we help the MSP get them loaded into the console, deploy the endpoints, or deploy the, whatever they might be purchasing. And we make it a very seamless process from beginning to end. As far as the MSPs go, I mentioned the marketing development funds. A lot of different vendors out there actually have these. And if MSPs aren't asking for those funds from the vendors, they may not actually be, fully open to letting you know that they're available. But a lot of vendors do provide them. We do provide them. If you come to us and ask, say, hey, I'm throwing an event, for the city council, some businesses in the area, we will hand you marketing development funds to go do that, as long as we're positioning some OpenText products in the meantime, right? And so I'm sure other vendors on the call do similar things, but that's a big value add that the MSP has been driving a lot of business with us over the past year or so, is taking big advantage of those marketing development funds.
Awesome. I guess, Rob, I've watched Danny over the years, basically evangelize and build this category in the industry, or at least starting with, zero trust, right? So I imagine, again, that plays a lot into how you guys go to market and support MSPs as well.
Absolutely. I mean, realistically, at the end of the day, MSP success is our success. So we do everything we possibly can to support them in that, whether it be, as the guys mentioned, onboarding, obviously really important. I mean, it's not just a case that you sell somebody a product and, have fun, guys, see you later. We really do actively have an involvement in getting not only our customers, but our customers' environments secured. I mean, obviously support is a huge part of it as well, because realistically, with not only a solution like ours, but any solution really, as an MSP, you want to have pretty much instantaneous support. And again, obviously, I've been on that side of the fence. I've been the guy logging an urgent ticket with Microsoft, and somebody comes back to you 3 days later going, hey, is that still a problem? That doesn't cut it in this space at all. I mean, you need to be able to speak to a human being in ideally 60 seconds or less, which is what we strive for and what we achieve as well. But as I said, realistically, every customer's success is an us success. So that is something we absolutely try and support.
That's awesome. So now I'm going to transition to the obligatory, where's this market going? What's this look like? And let me start with you, Steve, because again, you got a very unique perspective on this. So, the technology, the evolution of technology, the evolution of the challenges, AI, ML, all that stuff is and LLM is going to just be even more pervasive in the lexicon. But, where does this go? Where does this end? Does it end? I mean, is it just a continual evolution and it gets more and more complex, and then there's consolidation. It just keeps going and going, keeps churning.
It's interesting because I don't know if everybody seems to think this is new, but I don't know if anybody remembers AS400s. So AI is an AS400 in my mind still. It's this consolidation and growth and bringing back. I was at the Mobile World Conference and they were talking about how AI and ML is not going to work. Data centers don't have enough space. Environmental concerns. So they're going to bring the server back on premise to do local pieces. And I was sitting there laughing next to a friend of mine. He's like, what? I'm like, so the cloud's coming back? Is that what we're saying? We're just going to bring the cloud back. So it's this consolidation piece. I do think it's always going to move. They're going to have a new name for it. We're unique in the fact that we're 8 months old. We've grown as of this morning to 83 partners as of right now. We have an education piece. The bottom line is the last mile is still the problem. It's always going to be the problem. And how do you consolidate and fix that last mile as much as you can? In that internet piece or that connectivity, and it really goes connectivity, compute, and then storage is in my head, and being here for a while, I've always watched that. We're in this connectivity revolution that I haven't seen since Ethernet token ring. And really kind of, what are we doing? Is it satellite? Is it 5G? I saw 6G and it blew my mind. Is it networking side of it? Is it WAN? I mean, there's terabyte and petabyte backbones being put in right now. How are we going to get that small, medium-sized business? And then enterprise is really kind of leading that side of it. But the small, medium-sized business, they're absolutely 1,000% reliant on the internet. COVID proved it. I left this industry 2012, 2013, wrote a big article about the death of an MSP because I had sold. And if you don't embrace the cloud, then you're not gonna have a file server. You're not gonna have an Exchange server. All of these different pieces. And boy, I'm glad I was wrong. Right. So now all of those are out. ERPs are out there. It's not just those pieces. There is not a file server on site. Right. If you look at Navision, which is now Business Central, which is a big ERP system, if that goes down, There's people, Microsoft's having trouble getting people to go off of on-premise. There's people still using a version of it in 2009 because they don't want to deal with it. So these pieces that MSPs are coming into play with that is to understand support's gone, all of that's gone. If you're Adidas and you're doing a huge a huge piece where you've got to get 250,000 different items out in an hour and your internet goes down, that's a big deal. But also if you're Susie, the accounting person, and you're a one-person shop and it's April 10th, that's also a big deal, right? So how do you make sure that all of that piece happens? And do I see it changing? I just see it growing. It's I got into IT because I think I have ADHD to a large degree, and I always have to constantly learn. So that is a big piece of it. But as our MSPs are going there, understanding which technology is going to go, right? Nobody needs to invest into Betamax. Everybody wants to be on the VHS side of it and really kind of understanding how you get there. So do I see it changing? No, I hope it doesn't. I'll get really bored.
Yeah. From a product perspective, right? I mean, you've got kind of this interesting, you're right at the cross section, right? Crosshairs of where the market is today and where it's going. You're probably constantly having to think about where it's going from a product standpoint, right? And so, I mean, how do you assess that, and where do you see this thing going over the next, I don't know, whatever years, 3 years, 5 years, 10 years?
Is that back to me? 5 years? AI. LLM has been adopted faster than any other tech we've ever seen. Yeah. 18 months, it's grown to a level that I don't think I've ever seen. It didn't come out of nowhere, but I was like, oh, well, this has been around for 30, 40 years. Now people are starting to use it. It was that compute power piece. 5G, where we're at that crossroads, absolutely imperative for it because of the milliseconds, because of the latency side of it. Yeah, that latency side becomes important. So where I see it going, it's moving back down, and we say the joke, take back the cloud, but it's moving back down onto on-prem, and you're going to see much more pieces, and that's going to be the interesting piece, is how they bring it back. Is it Internet of Things? You had IoT came out, was big news. 5G came out, it's big news. AI came out, it's big news. Now all of that piece is starting to come together. It's all a lab toy until somebody makes practical use out of it. The steam engine was worthless until somebody made a railroad. So now as this is coming, it's starting to become, and that piece is interesting. I don't think half of us know what's going to come. And that's the cool side.
Yeah. So Rob, for you, I guess, thinking about it from a product perspective, right? Again, you're here today, you got the product, get the roadmap, and how do you kind of look at this moving forward? The complexity of particularly security and where's this market going?
Well, I suppose from our perspective, it's kind of the beauty of what we do. The default and I approach basically is that we don't really have to respond to individual trends, individual threats, things that are happening out there, because generally speaking, it's not like we have to detect things specifically. I mean, basically, if we block everything, you're going to block all the bad things realistically. There are things, and to be honest, it's kind of an education, I see it as an education responsibility on our part, that we need to tell people what's happening out there and what they need to do to protect themselves. And I'll give you a really great example, which is Microsoft released their digital defense report about a month ago. And there's a couple of really interesting stats actually in the ransomware section of it. And I mean, look, realistically, ransomware is not slowing down. If anything, it's getting worse. But the really interesting takeaways from it, where they mentioned that in 92% of successful attacks, so attacks that led to the ransom stage, the attackers had leveraged unmanaged devices on the network. So things that weren't managed or manageable on the network were used in 92% of successful attacks. The other really interesting statistic in it was that 70% of attacks involved remote encryption. So it's not something on a device encrypting data on that device. It's something on a completely different device encrypting data on a protected device. Now, those two things are huge, and it's something that I'm sure pretty much every cybersecurity vendor is seeing these days, is that they're getting more. I mean, if anything, they're more persistent than they ever were. I mean, I used to say for a long time that, look, ransomware gangs are basically fundamentally lazy. They're looking for low-hanging fruit. They're looking for soft environments. I mean, if you make their life difficult, if you stop them from doing what they're trying to do, very often they'll just pivot and move to another target. We're not seeing that anymore. And I think part of the reason may be because they're paying for access. So they're basically going to brokers and they're saying, right, I want to buy access to Kevin's environment. They paid for that. That's an investment on their part. So they're going to make sure that they get something back for that investment. But as I said, the likes of the trend towards remote encryption, the trend towards unmanaged devices being something that people need to concern themselves with, that's something that I see as a responsibility of ours, is to tell people about it, to inform them about it and say, look, this is how you can protect yourself against this. So if you control your network, stop things connecting that shouldn't be allowed to connect, for example, then you're going to solve this particular problem.
Absolutely. Yeah. So let's see, Greg, for you guys, right? So you mentioned growth through acquisition. You guys have been on a pretty aggressive pace here over the last couple of years. For you guys, where do you see this going? And do you see, a speeding up of technology and new market entrants, where do you guys look like in the next couple of years?
Yeah. So I think I don't think we're going to stop, making acquisitions as we see them come available in areas that we want to invest in. And so I think the acquisition space will continue to be attractive for us. But I think for the way that OpenText has expanded over the past 5 years, I think the most important thing for us, especially now that we have that platform that is Secure Cloud, is how fast can we then bring a new product on and then turn around and get it integrated, fully integrated into Secure Cloud to make it easier for our MSPs. And not only make it easier, but also make it secure. And so if you're bringing everything into one single pane of glass, into one platform, it's also now keeping it kind of at least siloed off so that, one solution can't hurt another solution, right? You can't use one to attack another. So Pillar, we made that acquisition about 5 months ago now. We'll have that fully integrated into Secure Cloud by the beginning of December. So the speed at which we bring products on, making sure that when we bring them on, we're securely bringing them into Secure Cloud, making it easier for our partners. I think that's going to continue to be the growth strategy for OpenText. And that's going to be our journey and our story, is not only bringing new products on, but then integrating them and making it easier for our partners to consume is going to be the big thing for us.
Awesome. And Mike, last but not least, one could argue that you're the brains or the Wizard of Oz behind kind of the product strategy over at Kaseya. So, I'm sure you guys see a ton of new technologies come down the pike, and there's probably constant evaluation of what's out there. And so what do you see moving forward? As it relates to kind of your overall product portfolio and then just the market in general.
Yeah, we see a lot of things. I would say from an MSP point of view, on the business side of the crystal ball, nobody knows what's going to happen, but there's going to be a lot, in our opinion, there's going to be a lot of co-managed opportunities in bigger environments, because you can't hire a tech person for internal IT that knows Azure, AWS, VMware, IoT devices, the latest AI. They just don't have the expertise. So there's going to be opportunities in the next 5 years. We expect co-managed to kind of grow substantially. I'd say in terms of the technology trends, certainly AI is the hot topic. It will continue, but it's very horizontal, right? We think of it in terms of cybersecurity or automating tickets, but that end customer may be, doing their accounting with it and writing marketing emails and having it do things like that. So it's really going to affect everything. And I think one of the big drivers is going to still be cybersecurity, because there is no silver bullet. Otherwise, there'd be one company and no more breaches. And I worry, or I think, that our first reaction for Western governments is compliance. So you're going to see, you see CMMC now. We've had HIPAA and PCI. There's more coming. There probably will be, at least in the United States, a national cybersecurity law or something about that fact. It makes people feel good that they're doing something. Will it yield results? yet to be seen. I don't know that HIPAA doesn't mean you throw out like HIPAA, but did we have more breaches this year than we did 15 years ago, since 20 years ago when HIPAA was enacted? We're going to start to see this. So compliance is going to be a big, cybersecurity and compliance is going to be big for MSPs to understand and deliver technologies that help them address that. Ultimately, I think once Western governments see this as a tax on personal and business, because that's what cybersecurity is, as long as it is profitable and relatively easy, and there is limited fear of any repercussions, getting arrested and going to jail, that gets into cryptocurrency and where they're doing it from. As long as that exists, I think with 5+ years, the idea may start to shift back to, we need some more defense, just like you get in physical crime. There are loads of people that will come out, research, help you, but in cybercrime, you're going to get fined for a compliance violation. So I think you're going to see compliance in cybersecurity. 5 years, absolutely. There's going to be more co-managed, and learn as much about AI as you can. We're going to build it into platforms. But if I was telling someone who was graduating school, no cybersecurity, no AI, unrelated to any cybersecurity, right? There are a million different applications.
Yeah. Look, I mean, I didn't want AI to be a dominant theme, but of course, it was going to be a dominant theme of this, because it is everybody's thinking about it as part of their product roadmaps and portfolios. But with that, gentlemen, I want to thank you for jumping on. I know we get, I'm just seeing from some of the other third-party platforms here on LinkedIn and Facebook, a couple comments. Thomas asked if this is going to be recorded. It'll be recorded, rebroadcasted on LinkedIn, Facebook, direct on StreamYard, and I think we even slice this up and put it out on podcasts as well. So we'll be able to get this out to the masses. But gentlemen, I want to thank you guys for jumping on, and we're looking really forward to seeing how each one of the organizations evolves over the next year. And keep on doing all the good stuff for our industry. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Take care.